no one in my life has ever been supportive of anything that I've done business related, and they don't believe you. And they think everything that you're saying to them is bullshit. And they think you're just an idiot or a liar or a bull. No one else is going to be there for you. You're there for yourself. If you're reliant upon other people for your own support, you're fricked. And there's no way around that. If you're actually dedicated to it, you're risking your life. If you're not actually dedicated to it, you're fake risking your life, because you're already going to have kind of that safety net. My safety net is me. There is nothing that's going to save me if I can't save myself.
Welcome back to another episode of Thriving with Ananka, the podcast where we dive deep into what really means to thrive, not just in success, but in life, growth, and everything in between. Today, I have a special guest, someone whose journey's definition of intentional living with impact. Luca, the founder of Mennr, has been quietly yet powerfully reshaping the marketing world. Mennr is a strategic and creative digital marketing agency that's helped scale dozens of small businesses grow. Well, what really truly sets Luca apart isn't just the results, it's about how he gets there with the team first mindset, and he is humble and emotionally intelligent approach, and of course has a relentless drive for growth. He's built more than just an agency, he's built a movement. In today's conversation, we're going to explore the mindset behind it all, how he got started, the challenges, and how he's redefined what it truly means to thrive, even when sometimes the odds were not in his favor. Luca, I'm excited to have you here. Let's dive in and hear your story.
Thanks for having me, Anenka. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you so much.
Of course, of course. So, first things first, Luca and I do know each other. And Luca, if you don't mind, you kind of want to share how we know each other and how we have you on the podcast today.
Yeah. So Anenka came onto the Mennr team. Boy, what is it, like 4 or 5 months ago?
I believe late December, early
Yeah, I
January.
think that's what I think. Yeah, late December. We brought her on, and since then she's been an incredible asset for us. As I'm sure everyone watching the pod knows, she's an absolute whiz on social media. So we've got her in here. She's putting together all of our content, doing all of our scripting, recording, and then she sends it over to Evan, who actually takes care of all of our editing. And the both of them really take care of everything social media related for us. Anenka's talking all about me, but Anenka herself, she has been a tremendous asset for us here at Mennr. I mean, honestly, without her, we would not have the social media presence that we have today. So I do want to give you props for that too.
I appreciate that. No, yes, it's been lovely working alongside Luca. If anything, it's definitely a team culture, and I think I'm very grateful to be working alongside him because I'm learning a lot of incredible things, and it's been a wonderful opportunity. So thank you, Luca.
But we're learning a ton from you too.
So I know we've learned, well, I kind of know a little bit more. I knew when I first met Luca, I learned a lot about him, his business, and what really kind of got him to start Mentor. And we'll get into that in a little bit throughout the episode. But I kind of wanted to ask you, Luca, who is Luca beyond the title of a business owner? What do you value most in your life right now?
Boy, this is going to be a little controversial. Um, yeah, so I value most of my life work. Um, and this is honestly a bit of a flaw of mine. I will admit. I'm not much of a family man. I don't spend much time with friends like I should. I don't really do much of anything outside of working, and it's someone outside of the I'll call it the entrepreneur space. And I hate using the word entrepreneur because it's so overused and so misused. Um, but to people outside of that kind of mindset, if you will, you tell them all you do is work, and they're like, "Oh my gosh, you must be insanely depressed." Uh, and it's really not it. But it all lies in kind of what your passions are. Why do you think you're here on planet Earth? What's your purpose? Um, and my purpose, I feel, is to start a business and really build a legacy for not only myself but my family's name. That's really why I do everything that I do. I'm okay with sacrificing short term for long term. When I am 50, when I'm 60, I don't want to have to think about work. I don't want to have to think about my kid can't go to this college because I can't afford it. I don't want to have those kind of thoughts. When I'm that age, I do want to be more of a family man. I do want to spend more time with friends and extended family and things like that. But for right now, it's all work, all work.
Yeah, and the thing is, a lot of people have a hard time. I think a lot, especially with like social media. I know people are like, "Oh, like life can't just be work," and that's true. But I think it's also when you're trying to build something for long term, and I know especially with Mennr, you're trying to make this thing not just like short term, maybe like 2 to 5 years. Like you're trying to be around for a very long time, and I think
Long after I'm dead.
yes, and a lot of people don't understand that when you're trying to build something, a lot of times people don't understand that it's definitely for the long term, and you're trying to build something that's going to last a long, long, long time, and that requires a lot of work. It's fine if you're working like now, but especially if you want this to be, very successful, you want this to be a very big thing, of course, you're going to have to put in a lot of work, and you're going to have to, set a lot of time to dedicate work. And so I understand why you said that what you value right now is work because I also feel that I also resonate that I too really just want to put in the work right now while we're young. And of course, like you're very much young still, and so you're taking that opportunity to say, well, I have a lot of time to leverage. So I'm just going to go ahead and go full send and just use as much time as I can because it's going to definitely pay you more than dividends when maybe like you're 40 you can go ahead and say, well, I'm done, I'm pretty much done everything I could, or you've probably already grew Mentor to where it needs to be. Now you can work on the next business venture. So I think it's all about just using your time wisely and building everything now and putting in the work now and working very hard now, but then you can relax. You can work hard now and relax later. And I love that you said that. So
Yeah. And people always say like, oh, well, life shouldn't be work. But I kind of I almost laugh sometimes because the people that'll say that to you are the people whose lives actually are work. People that are working until they're 70 and they can't retire. And it's like, sure, maybe you guys live that 9 to 5. You clock out of work and then you're not thinking about work at all. But you're going to be doing that for your entire life. You're not setting yourself up for any sort of future where you actually don't need to think about work. Um, Sometimes I kind of feel like people get it a little bit backwards. But at the same time, I also understand like what I'm trying to do is extraordinarily risky. If all of this fails and nothing comes of it, I'm gonna have to just restart all over again. And this is one thing that I've always, kind of thought to myself, and something that my friends think I'm an absolute nut job for. Um, but I'd rather be homeless than take a W-2 job somewhere. Um, if I didn't have my mother, I literally would have be homeless right now. The company does not make we're not making tens of thousands of dollars every single month. I mean, I don't take any money from Mennr right now just because of our size. I've probably lived for the past 2 3 years on a grand total of like $20,000. And that's nothing. Um, so there's all those different elements that come with it. There's the good, there's the bad, and at the end of the day, we're so young. This is the time to make mistakes. This is the time to try things out. As we get older, it only gets harder and harder and harder. There's the internal, and then there's the external stuff that kind of comes into play. As you get older, there is more of that external weightage that's thrown on top of you. You have a significant other, you have a child, your parents are getting older, your grandparents pass away, life just comes at you, and next thing you know, you're 40 years old and you're still working that 9 to 5 because you never took that risk, you never took that leap when you were younger, even just to try it. um and but then again, it's just not for everyone, and I completely understand people that want to take the safe route. But I just don't see, and this is going to sound really bad, but I don't think life's worth living if I have to do a 9 to 5 every single day. That is literally a living hell, in my personal opinion.
mm-hmm. Yeah, 100%. I agree with everything you've said because I think also like again going back to the young age, like I also resonate with you because I remember when I turned 18, I was like, well, I don't want to do this for the rest of my life because I kind of realized that you have control. Like you're actually able to like change the way that you want to live your life. Like you don't have to like live it paper by paper and how they want to have it written for you. I mean, like yeah, we've had people, parents to do traditional jobs, traditional life, and so I've realized that well, that's their life. I can probably change mine the way how do I want my life to be is the question. And so I realized that oh, I can actually do things for me. I can actually be my own boss or I can actually create something. Like everything is very limitless. And I think it's definitely something that people should really consider. And I love that you mentioned all of that. And of course, I mean, obviously, when you were younger, like, did any part of your younger self, like, kind of already show signs that you wanted to be a business owner and you wanted to create something?
Yeah, 100%. When I was like 12 or 13, I vividly remember a car ride that I had with my mom, and we were talking about, well, what do you want to be in the future? And I would toss around, I want to be a paleontologist, I want to be an astronaut, this, and that. But once I got to like around 12 or 13 or 14, that's kind of when I really understood the world, really realized that if I'm a paleontologist, that's really not going to be that great of a career. It's cool to deal with dinosaurs and fossils, but the reality of the society that we live in, money comes into play at some point, and the money's not there, so I'm not going to dedicate my life to that. Um, and my grandfather, he's a landlord, so he's got a bunch of apartments, and my other grandfather also owns a restaurant, which I'm sure we'll talk about later. Is kind of what the inspiration for Mennr, where the inspiration for Mennr came from. But I vividly remember I was in this car ride with my mom, and we were talking about it, and I said, "Well, I want to start a business. I want to be a business owner." And she said, "Well, why would you want to do that? Business owners aren't happy." And I said, "Well, someone's got to do it. Why not me?" And that's kind of been the mindset that I've taken all throughout. When I was in college, or excuse me, high school, my junior and senior years of high school, I was going out. I was doing freelance work. This was back when Fiverr, Freelancer.com, Upwork were not nearly as popular as they were today. And I would go out, I would apply, and I would bid on jobs. And me being a high schooler, I knew how to code a little bit, and for context, I was bidding on website development jobs. I knew a little bit about design, I knew a little bit about coding, but I was by no means a pro. So what I would actually do is I'd get awarded a job, then I would go back to those platforms and find someone overseas who could do it for a little bit cheaper. And I'd keep the difference, $50 here or $100 there. And for a high schooler, that's a lot of money. And that's really where I found kind of, I'll call it my niche, like what I'm good at. I mean, what I'm really good at is building teams of people to kind of come together and all contribute to a common goal. So that brought me after college, after high school. My freshman year of college was the first startup that I ever worked with, called Fansure. Uh, then after Fansure, when COVID hit, I was kind of going around working with other startups. There was a company called Remote Roofing, another company called Thorostat, Jet Albert, and then I finally ended up, the last startup that I ever worked with was a fintech startup called Yawnsfer. Nowadays, they're known as Pocket. And Yawnsfer is a really cool company. So the CEO of Yawnsfer, Mason Lin, he used to live in China. He built up another fintech startup in China, sold it to Alipay, and then Alipay actually effectively kind of hired him to then move to New York City to start another fintech startup so that we could bring the Chinese yuan into the US economy. And that's exactly what we're building out. It was a QR code payments through mobile app wallets. So paying at CVS through things like Alipay, paying at CVS through things like Venmo, Cash App, Kakao Pay, all of those different mobile payment providers that overseas outside of the US are major. In the US, we don't really use mobile payments as much, but that's because we have our debit cards. But overseas, the debit card is those mobile wallets. So after I worked there for a little over a year, we went through our Series B of investment round. We ended up raising $3 million. And then after that, I kind of decided, this startup thing's pretty cool. I think I could do this myself now. And that's when I left Pocket and ended up trying to start my own thing. I went back for a little bit to doing software development. You kind of go towards you gravitate towards what you're comfortable in at first. And so I was doing software development for a little bit. Then I got into data sales, which was pretty cool. Then I got into more courses, which I feel like every entrepreneur at some point in their life gets into courses. Um, and then that's, I was kind of getting towards the latter end of my college years and kind of realized, none of these businesses are like sustainable long term. Like, for example, with software development, I'm not really, I didn't really, wasn't fulfilled in that. We were building software, we were building products for other companies, but it wasn't like we were changing their business entirely, or at least the contracts that we were getting at that time. So I really wanted to do something that made a difference, and that's when I kind of gravitated towards marketing. During COVID, my grandfather, the one that owns the restaurant, like I mentioned earlier, um, he went through it during COVID, all relying upon walk-in traffic for the actual restaurant customers. And when everyone's quarantined, obviously no one's walking in anymore. So about a month or so into quarantine, it's pretty clear that without any change, without any increase in business, it's going to go bankrupt. And I didn't want to obviously just let my grandfather's business that he started in '73 just completely go down the toilet bowl because of something that's completely out of his control and out of all of our control. So put together his Google business profile, put together a little website for him. But really what made the difference was getting him on Uber Eats and DoorDash. Once I got him on Uber Eats and DoorDash, I swear, literally within a couple of weeks or so, it was right back to where we needed to be. Like, we were not worrying about bankruptcy anymore. And now, post COVID, it's doing, almost better than ever. I'd imagine better than when it first started in the '70s. But we had family friends who just weren't as lucky as my grandfather. They didn't have me or anyone else there that could kind of help them out. And one of our very, very close family friends literally did end up losing their business to the point where they now work at the restaurant just so that they could, have some sort of income. They, husband and wife, they built their entire careers, their lives off of this business. And just like that, in the span of a year, just was taken from. And I really felt like there's just no reason that should be the case. There shouldn't be those mom and pop shops. They don't deserve that kind of stuff. There's, with technology, with the knowledge that's out there in terms of marketing, we should, and there needs to be something that can help these businesses to make sure that they're A, not in that position from the get-go, and B, if they are in that position, to help them get out of it. So that was the inspiration actually for what started Mennr as it is today. Mennr marketing. There's a long track that kind of got us to this point. It's, honestly, for anyone that wants to start their own business, anyone who wants to be an entrepreneur, I highly recommend working for other startups first. There's a wonderful website. It used to be called angel.co. It's now called Wellfound. That is a platform where funded startups will go and post job openings. Apply. I was a freshman in college when I applied and got my first startup role. It's possible. It can be done. But that's, and then the reason that I say that is you want to really experience it. You want to know that this is the life for you. When I was working at Pocket, I was insanely burnt out by the time I left there. Literally, I would wake up in the morning, sit at my desk, work, go to sleep, rinse and repeat 7 days a week. And at the time, while I was in it, it was fine. I was perfect. I was loving life. As soon as I left, yeah, that's when it all hit me. And the burnout is real. You need to learn how to manage that and how to operate at a high level without completely crashing out at the end of the day. And for me, I mean, to be honest, I still sit at my desk all day. I wake up, sit at my desk, go to sleep. But what I do differently now is I try my best to keep the weekends for myself. And after, for example, like, after work, I'll typically wrap up my day around 8, 9 o'clock. Uh, I'll sit down, have some dinner, and while I'm having dinner, I'll put on a show, I'll watch some YouTube, and that's kind of my winding down time. Um, Having some sort of routine is really important to combat that kind of burnout. Um, it's a roller coaster, but it's so rewarding and so fulfilling to really take life by your hands and just make it what you want it to be. You could be comfortable, you could live comfortably, or you can be risky and live risky. Um, I prefer to live risky.
Yeah. Yeah. That was really, I love that you shared all that because, of course, there's a lot of that growth that has to be a part of that, like you know what I mean, like you don't kind of just wake up one day and say, well, yeah, you can do this, but it takes a lot of discipline. And I think that's why a lot of people, like for example, they go to the gym for a week and they lift, and next week they don't see any results and they quit immediately because they don't like that the results are not fast paced. But ultimately results are not fast paced, they take a lot of time. And so for you, I mean, you were like, okay, let's do this. Like, and I think it's all about having that mentality and also that drive. And since we're on the topic of, personal growth and mindset, that probably took a lot for you to kind of start Mennr and also, endure those struggles in those times. And like, I wanted to ask you, like, what's one belief that you had a few years ago that no longer serves you anymore?
A belief that I had a few years ago that no longer serves me. Well, I would have to go back a little bit further than that. I would say, like when I was in high school, I don't know. That's actually a good question. So I'll say this: no one in my life has ever been supportive of anything that I've done business related. Um, when I was in college, none of my friends actually believed that I was telling the truth about the startups that I was working for. It wasn't until because they were all, I went to one school, they all stayed home. Um, and at this time, I kind of became a little bit more detached. Like I was just working. I wasn't really talking to people. I mean, I wasn't even calling my own mom. And it's just because I was so laser focused on what I was doing. Um, and not to get too much into it, but for example, at Pocket, I was making $105,000 a year, and you tell your friends that like, oh, you've got this job, but you're salaried, but you're still in college, and you're making six figures, and they don't believe you, and they think everything that you're saying to them is bullshit, and they think you're just an idiot or a liar or both. It's, it got to the point where they literally wanted to stop being friends with me because they just didn't believe anything that I was saying to them. And it got to the point where I left college because, sure, I wasn't really speaking to them anyways much at this point, but they were literally, they are still also literally my only friends that I have. If they stop being friends with me, I quite literally have zero friends. And people always say like, oh, I don't have any friends, but like they actually do have friends. I was looking at literally having none because they just wouldn't believe what I was saying to them because to them it was so preposterous. And what I ended up having to do was left college on the weekend, drove to their house, and they literally made me open up my bank account and show them pay stubs for each month. And then that's when they were like, "Oh wow, okay, you're not lying." And it's like, that's kind of when I realized no one else is going to be there for you. You're there for yourself. If you're reliant upon other people for your own support, you're fricked. You're done. Um, and sure, like yes, other people in your life, they're good to be support systems, but if they're not there, what do you do? If they don't believe in you, what do you do? If they tell you you're an idiot, what do you do? It's exactly what happened to me. Um, it even got to the point where my mom didn't even believe in anything that I was doing. She said, Luca, just, you got to get a job. Just get a job. Just get a job. Just get a job. Just get a job. And to me, getting a job is it's like suicide. It stops me from being able to do anything that I can do for my own business, for my own growth. And my friends would say the same exact thing to me. After, not when they saw that I was making money, but after, when I started trying to do my own thing, when I stopped making money, they would see me, no, I wouldn't consider it struggling because I knew inside I wasn't struggling, but from an outside point of view, they see me struggling. And they say, Luca, you got to just get a job. Just get a job, even if it's just something on the weekends. And I would say to them, no, I can't. I can't do that. And they wouldn't really understand why. And I would tell them, what if someone calls me and I need to pick up the phone? Or, at that time, I was always, searching the web. I was always just trying to grow the business, building out stuff for the business. There are times that I would run into people, for example, that I would end up creating great partnerships with and relationships with that would kind of help me get to that next step. That would help me take that next step. If I was working, if I had a job that I had to go to, if I was a busboy or something like that, I would have missed out on those opportunities. The only reason, and I personally believe this, the only reason that I've been able to get to the point where I am today is because I was able to capitalize on all of the opportunities that came my way. And not only that, I was able to put myself in the position to be in front of these opportunities. If I was working, I would not have been in those. I would not have been in that position. And you know what happens when you start? You want to be an entrepreneur, all right? You want to create a startup. You want to do your own business, but you have that kind of that security blanket of a real job that's giving you fixed income every single week or every single month. As soon as you get a couple of ruts with doing it your own way, you just fall back on what's comfortable. It's human nature. And I never wanted to give myself that opportunity. Because sure, I understand and I know what I want to do, and I'm pretty strong minded, but who knows? If I was really in the shitter and I had this job, who knows? Maybe I would have just taken the easy route and the comfortable route, not necessarily the easy route, but the comfortable route. Um, and that's just not, it's just not for me, you know. Um, but yeah, as far as something that I believed that I no longer believe, I've always kind of been this way. I've always been a little cuckoo. Um, always wanted to do things my way. It's actually something my mom gets mad at me for. Is I always want things done my way. And that's not completely true. If you have a different way to do something and you have a why, like there is a why behind what you want to do, I'm all for change. But if you come and you're just saying to do something else, but you don't have a why, I'm not going to change because I know why I'm doing it my way. Um, and other people don't have to. This is really, 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 really big thing as an entrepreneur. You do not need anyone else in your life to understand what you're doing. As long as you understand what you're doing, that is all that matters. Um, like, like screw everyone else. Honestly, that's kind of like the mentality that you have to have. Um, it's tough. It's really not for everyone. But yeah, there's really nothing that I could think of that like when I was a kid I used to believe that I kind of realized not to be not to be true. I always knew the work. I mean, from when I was 13, 12, 13, my mom made sure that I knew that the work was going to have to be put into it. Um, I've seen my grandfather's business, the restaurant. I've seen my other grandfather as the landlord. My grandma, she's even a real estate agent. So she in and of herself is an entrepreneur as well. Um, but yeah, no, there's really nothing that I could think of. What about you? What has there been anything that you've kind of since maybe even since working at Mennr that you've kind of noticed or changed your opinions on?
Yeah, like, well, first I want to like say that I liked how you talked about like the part where you said like screw everyone else, because I mean like ultimately like if you're building something and you care what people's opinion is about what you're building, like that's gonna ruin what you already have set for yourself. I think it's all about, like, I always tell like my friends, like if people's comments and what they voice to you aren't music to your ears, if it's just noise, distance away from those people, because if anything they're going to disrupt what you're trying to build for yourself. And if they don't see it, if they don't try to understand it, don't try to help them understand. If they've already showed you that they don't care, or if they simply don't get what you're trying to build or what you're trying to say, you don't have to like give your whole day to try to explain to somebody what you're trying to build. I think
And I will
ultimately.
say, to kind of piggyback off that too, those people also could be your like your best assets to a degree, because as you're going through and you're trying to, whether it be come up with an idea, and by the way, when it comes to ideas for your own startup, that should almost be something that comes naturally. Like for me, I would have idea after idea after idea, and I would just go try it. I would just go try it. And you know what would happen? As I'm trying these ideas, I would come across other ideas that make more sense. Um, and that fit better with kind of what I'm trying to achieve. Um, but they could be your biggest, your best kind of sound wall, if you will, because you just spit everything to them. If there's something that they don't understand, okay, they don't understand it, and like you said, you don't have to spend, you don't have to waste your breath trying to convince them otherwise. But now you can kind of take where they're not understanding, and okay, maybe I need to kind of adjust how I'm talking about something, or maybe I want to rethink kind of an approach that I'm taking. Um, so they could also, they could be helpful, and and I want to make sure people don't just completely cut them out of your life. You also have to understand what you're trying to do is different. What you're trying to do is very risky, and to be completely honest, those people that I said, kind of screw, just don't worry about, they're they're acting that way and they're having that response because they care about you. And they don't want to see you homeless. They don't want to see everything, your whole entire life just collapse underneath you. Um and they're not able to kind of comprehend why someone would want to take that risk. Like, you're risking your life. And there's no way around that. If you're actually dedicated to it, you're risking your life. If you're not actually dedicated to it, you're fake risking your life, because you're already going to have kind of that safety net. My safety net is me. There is nothing that's going to save me if I can't save myself. Um, and that's a really, really big motivator when you know that there is no one that's going to help you. Um, and then there's also the aspect where you can, how do I word that nicely? You can try to do your startup, your first idea fails, and then you start having self-doubt, you start rethinking everything. Um you know what? Honestly, if you have those thoughts, you should probably just go get a regular job, because folks that have those thoughts, as far as I've seen, that's typically the start of the end, when you're self-doubting yourself. Now there's a lot of different a lot of different flavors that self-doubt can come in. Um, but if you're at the flavor of self-doubt where you're questioning your ability, you're questioning if this is right for you, you're questioning if this is what you're meant to be, it's probably not it. Um, I and this is something my friends always love to make fun of me for. Um, but I feel like I have like a self-fulfilling prophecy. Like I am here to do this. Um, and this might come off the wrong way. Um, but for example, like the Rockefeller family, these massive families that everyone knows the names of, they've made their legacy. That's what I want for my family name. Um, and I understand that's not going to necessarily, like, the Rockefellers wasn't as big as the Rockefellers were when John was still here. It grew over time after his passing. That's kind of the same thing that I want. You know, I it's not like I come from a dysfunctional entire family. You know, my mom went to community college. My grandparents never went to college. Um, you know, there were your average middle class family. I don't want my kids to grow up that way, to be honest. And it, like, there's nothing wrong with it. Like, it's just I want something different for my family. And it's just, I don't know. It's just something that and it's kind of like weird to talk about because, like, you say that to people and then they're like, this dude's freaking crazy. Like, look at him. He's on his high horse. Like, oh, he thinks so highly of himself. And it's like, no, I really don't. And, like, my mom says that to me all the fucking time. Or can I swear on here? Is that
Yeah, you
bad?
can. Yeah, you're
All
good.
right. Sorry. My mom says that to me all the time, and that's, really, really frustrating. Because, so for example, um, I haven't gone on vacation in years. Um, haven't had money, haven't had time, haven't had the desire. This year, I do want to take some time. I would like to go on vacation. All my buddies are going out, and I want to go with them. They're getting an Airbnb. It's only going to be about $400, and we're kind of at the point with Mennr where I've been able to save month to month in preparation for it. But being kind of who I am, I can't just take 5 days off from work. So I'm going to go. I'm still going to go on vacation, but while my friends are, going out to the beach or whatever they want to do during the day, I'm just going to stay back at the Airbnb and just be on my computer and do some work. And I was talking to my mom about this actually a couple days ago, and she said, "Oh, you're on your high horse." She was like, "I wouldn't want to go on vacation with you if you're just going to sit at home, sit at the Airbnb and work. Like, why do you think people would want to go on vacation with you if you're just going to be working?" And it's like, bro, I don't know. Like, shit. Like, they asked me to go. I said yes. I'm not going to just leave for 5 days. Like, I felt like personally, this is a good compromise for myself. Like, okay, I'll allow myself to go on this vacation. I'll allow myself to semi relax, but I still need to work. Like, I can't just not work. I don't have that kind of life. I don't have that kind of job. And it's not because I think so highly of myself that I want to be working while on vacation. It's like, no, like, I really need to be. Um, like, for example, like, how would it look if I just said to you guys, hey Mac, hey Red, hey Anenka, hey everyone, I'm gonna be taking vacation. I'll see you in 5 days. That looks fucking horrible. Like, I can't do that, and nor would I ever want to do that.
I think also like all hell would break loose if you had,
I think so too.
yeah, like I think everything would just be like, well, what do we do now? I mean, we can still function, but I think it's just like
No, yeah.
you like not being there. We're like, okay, now we're kind of having to do times 10 when and I understand like you like going on vacations like okay, well, I can do work because I do the same. Like when I'm traveling somewhere and I'm like, and I can't, I get like a itchy feeling. I'm like, I really need to do this right now. And like all my friends are like, but why, we're on vacation? And they're like, okay, well, I'm gonna go to the pool for 3 hours. Perfect, you guys have fun. I'm gonna be on the balcony. I'll be outside. I'm here. I'm attending the trip, but I need to get this done because I just feel like if I just like I can relax, but I feel like when I have things I need to do, it's really hard for me to sit and relax and not think about my tasks. So I 100% relate with what you're saying.
Yeah, I can't go to the beach and have fun during the day knowing that you guys are back in Discord working. Like, I will literally just be thinking the entire time about it, and it'll get to the point where I just sit on my phone on Discord just talking to you guys and helping out where I can. Um yeah, no, I would not be able to rest at all. Now, nighttime, when everyone's going out to the bars and stuff, sure, I'll go out. I will have fulfilled what I needed to do for that day. And that's really, I think, that's where my vacation experience will be, is at night. Like I just don't need to be doing anything during the middle of the day. Um, like honestly, what I'm really looking forward to is being able to, because we're going to Florida, by the way, Fort Lauderdale, is being able to go out there, sit on that back porch in the sun, computer in my lap, and have a different environment than my basement slash office slash bedroom. Because I will say, it gets a little old sometimes. So that's really like where my hope, my what I'm looking forward to in the vacation is actually working.
Hmm. Yeah. And definitely like it's also I've I'm assuming because like like there must be a lot of pressure like to kind of have it all together. Do you feel like you deal with a lot of pressure running Mennr like and kind of having to deal with all of it by itself? Like how do you feel about that?
It's not pressure, and it's not pressure because I have full confidence in myself. Now, like when I was working at my first startup, Fancher, yeah, that was a lot of pressure. But no, right now I don't have any feelings of like pressure. All I have feelings of are let's just keep moving. I do not want to just be dead in the water. Um, yeah, I feel a responsibility. That's what I actually would say. I feel a responsibility to Mennr more than I feel any sort of kind of pressure towards anything.
Hmm. I like how you responded that like that there's no pressure but you feel very confident and I think just having that attitude of feeling confident there's no pressure
That's
to be
everything.
involved. Yeah, I love that you said
That
that.
is literally everything in this world. Like if you're confident, you could do anything. Talk to anyone. There's like, and I love these videos sometimes you'll see them on social media. People will put on a outfit of like Home Depot or like Lowe's or something and pretending to be like a worker. And they'll just come in, they'll just start working, play the role, and other workers will kind of pass by and they'll look at them because they don't recognize the face, but they don't really say much because they got the vest, they're doing work, they look the part. Um, and this is also kind of another controversial saying, and I don't agree with it fully, but fake it till you make it. That is a big, big, big piece of just even getting started. And the reason that I said I don't like it fully, because like if you get a job, for example, Anenka, let's say you got a job doing software development because you lied, just bold faced lied and said that you did software development. That's not faking it till you make it. That's just like screwing yourself over. Now fake it till you make it though. Let's say you did have a software development background and you did apply. Um, and you in an interview said that you have full confidence that you can take care of creating the API documentation for their API, but you've never written an API document before. That's faking it till you make it. That's having confidence in your ability. Just because you haven't necessarily done something doesn't mean you can't do it. If you have the confidence, and honestly, confidence paired with ambition, um, that is, I think, really the key. Ambition and drive. Like there are other traits, but that trait instilled also with confidence is, I feel like, if you looked at every single successful entrepreneur, something that they all have. And that's also something. So there's two things that I'll say here. Y Combinator Startup School on YouTube. You can find Startup School, and this is a course that is taught at Stanford University. And the Startup School courses or classes that I personally like are the ones that Sam Altman was the teacher for, the lecturer for. And this is Sam Altman before OpenAI is what it is today. I actually believe this is when he was just starting OpenAI. Um, and he brings in people like Paul Graham, and a bunch of other serial entrepreneurs, and has them, host their own little class. That is a wonderful, wonderful watch that I recommend anyone that wants to become an entrepreneur or wants to start their own business watches. Um, and the other thing that I highly recommend is take a look at other startup entrepreneurs. Um, try to pick them apart. Like, what is their makeup? Um, what contributed to where they're able to go? Um, Smarts, being a genius, doesn't matter. Literally does not matter. Um, if you want to say be a Elon Musk and you want to create PayPal, okay, being a genius probably going to be helpful there. But that's not that's not a requirement. You do not need to be a pure genius. Um, that's something that I feel like that scares a lot of people away from it. But
Yeah, absolutely. And I like that you mentioned the confidence and ambition because I'm pretty sure you know like Gary Vee. I mean, a lot of people know who Gary Vee is. I love him. And he always talks about being patient but being ambitious. So like yeah, like let's say for example, you're posting on social media, you're posting content. Don't just sit there and wait for the content to just automatically, get views. Like keep posting it. Like you being patient requires you to be ambitious. So yes, be patient about getting people to, follow you, support you, but also be ambitious about getting those results to happen. And so ultimately that's what for me too, I resonate with that because I've also found that to be a huge drive and a key factor to the things that I do. Like yes, I'm patient, but I find myself to be very secure and very confident with what I'm doing. And even with times I feel like, oh, I don't know if this is going to look right, I still try to have a positive attitude and be confident with it because if anything, my mindset's going to shift in a whole different way. And if anything, I'm going to have a whole new perspective on how I'm viewing things in my life. Um, I wanted to ask you, or do you have something to say?
I just really quick, and one thing that I've just noticed about myself is once you kind of get into it, and you will start doing things, and you'll start thinking about things in ways um, that you feel like are unique to yourself. And then what will happen is you'll go on social media, for example, and you'll see someone else like a Gary Vee talking about the same kind of thing, the same sort of mindset that you've built for yourself. And personally, one of the most gratifying things is to have that happen, is to have some sort of mindset or to have some sort of routine or just to do something in general that I came up with on my own, that I figured out on my own. And then to see your motivation influencers or your startup influencers or just other voices in the space talking about that same thing as a contributor to success, that to me is super rewarding. Um, it's a reassurance. It's a reassurance that I'm on the right path. Um, and that those reassurances are nice to have when they come around. But go for it. What were you gonna say?
Yeah, of course. I love that you said that. And I wanted to ask you a couple more questions since we're kind of leaning towards the end of the podcast. I feel like I've learned so much just talking to you. And I've also learned things that I can also implement. So I love like your attitude with, just not just business, but like your overall self growth. I think that's a really great way to kind of, for me, I think it's more about like opening doors, if you will, because I think like with self growth and that takes a lot of time, but I think just developing into a really good your best self but almost like a better individual, you kind of allow these doors to just automatically open for you and you create more opportunities for yourself. So I love that you're definitely an advocate for
And
self-growth.
I wouldn't even say open for you because everything that you're doing is contributing to that door opening. Opening for you in like the way that I see it is like nepo babies. Like you come from a okay, this is gonna sound really weird, but like what I want my children to be is kind of how I see that. Like I want my children to kind of have doors open for them. And it sounds kind of weird, but that's like that's what I want. Um, I want my kids to be like I want to pass Mennr down to my children, and that would be an example of a door opening. Like they didn't really do anything to get that. I mean, to be fair, at that point, I literally did all the work. I mean, I made half of them, and obviously the wife would have made the other half. Um, and all they did was just be my child, and then boom, they were handed them. Um, but yeah, um, yeah, I forget where I'm going with that, but
No, you're okay. I definitely didn't. I like that you like rephrase that because I definitely didn't see it in that perspective. So thank you for that. I wanted to ask you two last questions. So, with Menor, like building Menor, you probably learned a lot of things building it. I think what's something that Menor taught you about yourself?
ooh, something that Mennr taught me about myself. That's a good one. One thing that I learned about myself from everything that I've done with Mennr, um, to trust myself, to trust that I'm not an idiot, to trust that I'm not a psycho. Have faith in the absurd. That's something that um, I've learned about myself and has been reinforced multiple times by Mennr.
I love that. I love the trust yourself. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like trusting yourself is gonna get you so far. I mean, like, I definitely can relate to that because there's times where I felt like I guess I couldn't like believe in myself because like one thing is someone believing you, but if you don't have the belief yourself, like it's gonna be really
Doesn't
hard
matter.
for you. Yeah, and so it's really important to believe in yourself, but also trust yourself and the process. And even if you don't see results happening right now, just the work that you're putting in right now, like keep putting in the work that you're doing because a year from now you're gonna tell yourself, "Oh, thank God I told myself to keep going because now I am where I'm at."
That's a really, really great thing. I do not want to live a life of regret. I don't want to look back in 10 years and say, ah, man, what if I just tried this? What if I just did that? Um, I don't want to have any of those regrets. And I've been good. I don't have any of those regrets as of right now. There's not a single thing that I would change in my entire life. Um, and I'm a believer that everything does happen for a reason, good, bad, and ugly. So there's a philosopher that I really like, Soren Kierkegaard, and he is someone that I read in my senior year of college. That at this point in time, Mennr was going through all of these different iterations, no support from family, no support from friends, all by my lonesome, and I really needed reassurance that the way that I think of life, the way that I look at the world, that I'm not alone. Like I needed to find someone that just aligned with the way I thought. Um, so I came across Soren Kierkegaard. I actually forget how I even came across him. But Fear and Trembling, my favorite book by him, and it goes through the story of Abraham, the biblical story, where Abraham climbed up to the top of the mountain and sacrificed his child because God basically told him to. That's a very, very extreme kind of side of the equation of doing what needs to be done. But everything else that he was saying was exactly how I looked at life. And that's something that I would recommend. If you're someone who, is to, struggling for confidence, even maybe, or just, just like me, you just want reassurance that what you're thinking is right, that you're not an insane person, that you don't need to be checked into a mental asylum. Um, Find some philosopher that aligns with your way of thought. There's bound to be one out there. I mean, philosophers have been alive forever, literally. So that's one thing that I highly recommend because it could be so reassuring. So reassuring.
Absolutely. And I wanted to ask you because I know we're almost halfway into 2025, and I feel like
I
there's been
know.
so much progress, so much to really sit down and reflect. And I wanted to kind of ask you, what does thriving mean to you this year? I mean, how do you know that when you're in that zone, but how do you see yourself thriving this year?
So for myself, I see myself thriving when I'm working, when I'm taking steps forward, honestly. And that's pretty like cliche to say, but like right now I feel like I'm thriving. I'm not making any money. But that's not what matters right now. Now for Mennr to be thriving, we need our team to really become more of a team. That's where we're at right now. Being remote, it makes it difficult to kind of have to build that chemistry with each other. Um, but that's something I think we'll be able to achieve sooner than later.
Yeah, that'd be really cool. I mean, like to especially with Mennr, I see like the vision and like I feel like I'm so excited for you and for what's to come. I mean, like I always say that like the journey's just begun, and I'm so excited to see what you have planned for Mennr and what other things you'll be building along the way. Like I said, I'm very grateful that I get to work alongside you because I learn so many things and I get to be a part of a wonderful culture that like has also allowed me to work on my personal endeavors and things that I want to do as well. So I love that I was able to be given the opportunity to work alongside you and the team. So
Well, we're more than ecstatic to have you here.
right. Thank you, Lucas, so much. I mean, I really appreciated your story with Mennr, how it got started, things that your struggles, your successes, and like I'm so excited to see how Mennr is going to turn out from
Yeah,
here
I would
on.
love to jump on again once we have a little bit more time and kind of dive a little bit deeper into how exactly I built Mennr and kind of that what that whole process looked like, because we kind of spent today going more high level of the life aspect of it, but I'd love to dive into the nitty gritty details.
Of course, you know what? We should do a part two. We definitely should do
We
a part
should. I
two.
agree.
We should definitely do a part two and find a day after this call. But that is definitely a wrap on Thriving with Anenka, everyone. Thank you to huge guest Luca for sharing his incredible journey with us today. Of course, part two, we will be scheduling part two soon. Thank you so much for listening to today's podcast with our special guest. Please take a moment to rate us 5 stars on Spotify for those who are listening. Subscribe, comment, like, share for anyone that needs this video. It's this kind of support that truly helps us grow and to, of course, reach more young individuals just like yourself who, of course, want to listen to incredible stories that inspire each and every single one of us. Your support truly means the absolute world to us. And as always, don't forget to stay connected, keep thriving. We will catch you on the next episode. Bye, guys.